More in class, we're going to go over section 3.5, solving absolute value equations. So we'll start off with the absolute value. Absolute value is distance. So how far apart two numbers are. So if I look at 5 and 3, how far apart are those? Well, there's 2 units. If I look at 3 and 5, how far apart are those? There are 2. If I look at negative 4 and 1, how far apart are those numbers? 5 units. And lastly, 1 and negative 4, 5 units. So does it matter the order in which I say what's the distance between 5 and 3 or 3 and 5? So order does not matter. It doesn't matter as far as when we look at distance between numbers because it's always going to be positive. So how we're going to go ahead and solve is we're going to come here and solve absolute value equations. To do that, we're going to go through a step. We're going to isolate our absolute value. So we want to get this. Right here, we don't care about the left-hand side. We just care about this. Is this by itself? Okay? If it's by itself, then we're going to write 2 equations. The 2 equations will look like this. What's inside the absolute value stays the same, and we switch. So we write one equation that looks just like this with no absolute value, and then we'll write our second equation. Left-hand side stays the same, but we switch it to wherever negative. Just one point of emphasis before we get going. If your absolute value, this part up here, equals a negative number, there's no solution. Your absolute value is always positive. So if it equals a negative number, then there's no solution. We don't have to go forward. That's different than when we come down here and write two equations. We're going to get a negative number. And it's fine to have negative numbers in here, minus, doesn't matter. It's only if our absolute value, when it's isolated, when it's all by itself, equals a negative, that we'll get no solution. Then we'll solve each equation after we do that. So let's go through an example. First one, absolute value of x equals 5. So once again, we look at that. Is absolute value all by itself? Yes. Does it equal a positive number? Yes. Then we write 2 equations. First equation, just as you see it, x equals 5. We just get rid of the absolute value brackets. Then we write it again, x equals negative 5. That's our answer. What value equals 5? If I take the absolute value, 5 or negative 5. Come to the next one, isolate. So we just look at this side. Is there any number outside these brackets on that left-hand side? No. So we write 2 equations. X minus 3 equals 4. Or x minus 3, and then we switch the sign, equals negative 4. Now we go ahead and solve. Add 3. So 4 plus 3 is 7. Negative 4 plus 3 is negative 1. So my answer is negative 1 or 7. Either one of those would work. They would equal 4 if I took the absolute value. Another example. Again, are the brackets, is there any number outside those brackets? No. Does it equal positive? Yes. So we go ahead and write 2 equations. X plus 5 equals 12. X plus 5 equals negative 12. Subtract 12 from both sides, and we get 7 or negative 17. And you can plug it back into the equation and see that it works. So now we come to this. X minus 3 equals negative 6. Again, check. Is this all by itself? Yeah. Anything outside the brackets on that left-hand side? No. Then we go here. Equals a negative number. Can't equal a negative number, so it's no solution. And we're done there. So now we're going to work on a couple others. So now we come here. Isolate. Is there any number outside these brackets? Yeah, that 2 is. So we have to get rid of that 2. So we divide by 2. 4 divided by 2 cancels out. 4 divided by 2 is just 2. And now, there's nothing outside, so we write our 2 equations. X minus 2 equals 2. X minus 2 equals negative 2. And then solve. Add 2 to both sides. So x equals 4 and x equals 0. We want to solve this one. Anything outside. So we check. Is there anything on the left-hand side of the equation? Is there any number on the outside? That 3. So we have to get rid of that 3 by adding it. Once we add it, does this absolute value equal a positive number? Yep, so we can set up our 2 equations. 2x plus 9 equals 7, or 2x plus 9 equals negative 7. Draw your line. Now, to get rid of 9, we subtract it. And I do it at the same time because we're going to do the same steps to solve. So 7 minus 9 is negative 2. Negative 7 minus 9 is negative 16. Divide by 2. 2 divided by negative 2 is negative 1. Negative 16 divided by 2 is negative 8. So, just a quick wrap-up. We're solving absolute value equations. So when we go ahead and solve, we're looking at distance, how far away something is. Distance is positive when we go ahead and look at. So our absolute value always has to equal a positive number. We're going to set up two equations to solve. One with a negative, one with a positive. So once we write two equations, it's okay to have a negative. All right? And so just a reminder, can't equal a negative.